like you don't just start with a fetish. Fetishes build slowly over time, right? I think, right? I assume that's the case.
Not always. No.
You think you just go full bore sex cannibalism like right out the gate?
Winners use drugs.
I talked to my friend in Toronto, and I said, "Oh, I'm doing a podcast these days," and like the first thing he like writes back is like, "I can't listen to your podcast, dude." Like, I'm not asking you to listen to my podcast. I just like, this is just like, I'm not like, I forgot that he's in Toronto, so it's like the same as kind of growing up in LA. You have people constantly saying they're singers or actors or actresses and whatever, right? And so I guess he gets bombarded with this kind of shit all the time. It's just like, no, you don't understand. I actually don't want my friends to listen because I feel like it'll control my narrative or what I talk about, or I'll be worried like the woke police in certain communities are going to come after me, you know? And it's too much of a fear response.
I'm the exact same way. I don't want the typical inhibitions that I have around people to come into this, right?
Yeah.
I want anonymity so that I can just say whatever the fuck I want to say, right?
Yeah, well, that's the point. That's why we're not on video until we get to 100,000 subscribers.
Exactly.
Then we're forced to do it. But yeah. Okay, so we were talking earlier about doing a drinking pod.
Yeah.
I think every month we should have you Uber over here and we just drink. We just get hammed at one Friday every month. That's our drunk pod, and we make it like a thing. So it's like, it's an ongoing, drunk pod number one, drunk pod number. That's what we always label them. Other people can drink with, that kind of shit.
Yeah, we could definitely see how that goes.
But here's the thing. It doesn't just go to drinking, though. I also envision thing like the shroom pod, where we go to the forest and record a shroom pod.
That could happen. Do you have like a coaster or anything for this, just so like it doesn't make
that was the point of the blanket, man.
Okay, that's fine.
But you can use the counter bot. You can move those plants, or move this one on. Yeah,
that'll work.
Yeah,
it's fine.
But yeah, like the shroom pod, we go out to some forest and fucking see if we can podcast while doing some amount of shrooms. Like,
yeah.
Also the Jason Gets High podcast, which is like, I think that would be fascinating because you don't.
If I get like stoned.
Yeah, like you would get rip shit like in a way that for me, I get too self-conscious when I smoke weed, right? To be doing a podcast.
Yeah.
Would you feel the same?
I think I probably would. Yeah. I'm self-conscious about everything.
But remember, you're the one editing, so you just fucking cut out whatever.
Yeah, that's true.
What does weed do to you? Like in general?
Yeah, I mean it's like an intense focus. That's the thing, right? Is like people will say, "Oh, this idea that you can smoke weed and be more focused is weird and I don't understand it."
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand how you can be anything else, right? Because weed is making everything interesting, right? For me, the problem with focus is that I get bored of things, right? If I can be interested in mundane activities, then I'm, Rain Man when it comes to doing them, right? I can focus wonderfully, right? So the problem, I think, is that I almost go too far, and that I'm suddenly piercing too deeply into like the things in my reality, right? And it starts to make me unsettled.
But what would it like? What's it like when you're with other people? Like for me, I can't follow conversation, like at all when I'm high with people.
Yeah, well, that's also.
Are you laser focused or no?
I'm laser focused, but not on the conversation. I'm laser focused on like the way the light hits the plant beside you or something, right? So I'm not paying attention at all.
We have such different experiences on weed. There's no way I would pay attention to the light on a plant. That's way more of a mushroom thing.
Yeah, well, for me, it's not. Well, think about this. Like, we've talked before about trying to watch movies while high, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most people say that it's amazing. Like, it enhances the movie watching experience.
Yeah.
I disagree, and I think you've also felt the same way
For
about
sure.
that.
Yeah.
Right? My thing was like, when I'm watching TV or watching a movie, when I'm high, I'm seeing actors.
Yeah. Same.
Right? I'm not seeing characters, right?
Yeah. It was the first time that it ruined It's Always Sunny for me. Because I was like, oh, these are fucking people on a stage.
Mm-hmm.
Like, or you know what I mean? Like yeah, and it felt like when I watched like those really try hard actors trying to act, it's like it suddenly feels like they're trying too hard to be something that they're like. Yeah, it ruins all of it for me. They're like the only videos I end up liking when high is like live music performances, you know, like,
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, it's not, nobody's trying to act, or it's the authenticity thing.
Or for me, it's documentaries, because those are.
What kind of documentary would be good on weed? I always think of like Vietnam War documentaries and stuff.
Ones that I really liked like a long time ago that I saw when I was high and they blew my mind were the Adam Curtis documentaries, like The Century of Self and The Power of Nightmares.
Never heard of them.
Yeah, they're like.
I'll have to check them out. I definitely like documentaries.
Yeah, so they were pretty big a while. This was like probably 15 years ago. So I don't know how they would stand up now.
Yeah.
But it was things like that, which were very.
But like, what kind of documentaries are they?
Well, like The Century of Self was an examination of how politics has changed over time, right?
Yeah.
Like they talk about how with Clinton, there was more of a focus on appealing to people's sort of like more basic desires. Like Clinton was the first to do like focus testing of policies, right? Where you take a group of people and you say, how does this policy sound? And the more people who say they like it, then that's your policy, right? Like you don't have a mandate.
Yeah.
You don't have an ideology that you're pushing. You're just appealing to whatever the masses want. It's like populism gone mad, right?
Well, you see, and like I can see wanting to watch that not high. That does not sound fun at all. And I try to do fun shit when I'm smoking weed. Like
Yeah. Well, so what are you
like get fucked up and play video games. Like there's nothing better. Like GTA. You can't tell me you're not gonna have a better time high. It's like everything is so silly. You know, suddenly you'll hit a pedestrian, like shit like that. It's like things like that's one of the best parts about being high, right? Is the things you're not expecting end up being the funniest things ever. Like Tom Segura was sharing yesterday that like he got his mom high for the first time ever. She's like 78 or something, and like gave her 10 milligrams and she didn't feel it, so she gave her another 10. And like there was a point where he just asked her if he wanted if she wanted a glass of water because she was saying she couldn't open her mouth or whatever. And she just thought it was the funniest thing ever that he had offered to give her water. And so like that's what I want when I'm high. I want the unexpected. If I'm trying to watch something to laugh, it's generally not going to work. Like stand-up's not better high to me.
So you're looking for genuinely funny moments.
Unexpected, but yeah.
Yeah.
Like I think it goes back to like when I used to get high in my 20s. It was like you never just got high and sat at home. It's like you and your friends went out walking or like went to Tim Hortons or went places, you know.
Yeah, you'd have an adventure basically. Like the high driving, that was our thing. It's like you get high and then you just drive around.
That's such a bad idea.
Well, I wasn't the one driving. So.
Yeah, but yeah, I think even to this day that wouldn't make me comfortable. I remember like getting home one time and thinking like, oh yeah, my friend is high driving. It's like this is going to be like how everyone treated drunk driving forever, right? Like still my friends all smoke weed and drive and whatever. But I still think in like 10 or 15 years, once there's more research and shit, it'll be like, yeah, we shouldn't be doing this. We know this. I feel like even when I was getting like chronic, right, I would sometimes just be like, whatever, it's not that big a deal. But I think it is a big deal, like in general.
Yeah, so here's my thoughts on that. The problem I have, and this goes for drunk driving as well, is like, yes, it's a problem. People shouldn't do it. But we need to contextualize the problem within the wider scope of dangerous driving activities, right? I think people put too much emphasis on something like drunk driving or driving high because these are considered vices. They're already something that people judge you for doing. Mm-hmm. So it's like a free pass to judge someone who also, in addition to say drinking too much or smoking too much, decides to put other people's lives in danger by getting behind the wheel, right? I get that. And I don't want to promote drunk driving, but I want people to understand that driving while really tired is just as bad.
Oh, for sure.
Right? Yeah. And yet we don't seem like people do that all the time.
Yeah.
Right? And it's not even against the law. Nobody takes a fatigue test when you get stopped by the cops, right?
I mean, not typically, but if they do have a law, but it's like, yeah, if you haven't slept in 24 hours or whatever, it's probably very difficult to prove in court.
Right.
But like, I hear what you're saying, but I think the thing is like, so I think it's about the acceptability, right? Like, you know, tiredness, it's like we all experience tiredness. So it's like, it's universally kind of okay.
Yeah.
Like drunk driving and getting high and driving is just like, it seems so unnecessary, right? Like it's because it's something you're choosing to do. Like lack of sleep is not something you're choosing to do, right? Yeah. Is that the difference?
I think that's part of it, but it's also the fact that we look down on substance use, right? So we're piling on additional judgments to that activity, where it's like someone might be driving tired because they have to get to work and they're being productive in our society, or they're driving their wife to the hospital because she's giving labor or in labor. So we're less likely to judge it for that reason, right? But it's just as dangerous. So we should look at it the same, right?
Yeah, we should. I also think this is our first Let's Get Canceled podcast for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Winners do drugs, promotes drunk driving.
Well, just as a disclaimer, I'm not promoting drunk driving. I just want people to recognize that we're putting it on this like judgment pedestal where we're adding extra stigma to it that doesn't need to be there.
Oh, for sure. And I like now, I mean, people using their cell phones or being distracted by their cell phones is like nth degree. Like to me, that's even worse because it's like their eyes literally aren't on the road. If you're drunk or high, you're at least still looking forward and you're probably trying harder than ever to not. Whereas texting and whatever, it's like anything, right? Like you cannot actually multitask. Like I know people say they can, blah, blah, blah. When your mind is looking down at your phone, you're not thinking about, oh, I'm still traveling 50 kilometers an hour. Like, and I'm guilty of this too. Like, it's like, you know, to me, school zones are like the time to change your music. Cause it's like, you know, and it's like, that's absolutely not the point of going 30 in a school zone. It's like, we're supposed to be slowing down but I feel like I'm not alone in that. Like, I feel like it's like, okay, now I'm going such a slow speed. This is the safest time to change my music, you know?
Yeah. I agree. I think the other unstated problem is there's some people that are just god awful at driving. Like, it doesn't matter how sober, on point they are. They just suck at it, or their minds are too scattered, even regularly, to handle it.
Yeah.
And it's like someone who's like a good driver, who's had a few drinks, is probably better and safer than someone who's just an awful driver who's sober, right?
Yeah. I mean, I talk often about if I was a totalitarian, like how I would make my driver's license. to me, the difference between good drivers and bad drivers is anticipation. There's certain people that seem incapable of anticipating speeds, what's happening. Like I would have some, like we don't get tested on reaction time or like just general reactivity. Like I feel like that should be something we test, because like there's people that you see trying to merge and they just cannot for the life of them tell how fast that car is coming. And so it's like they could easily just merge in front of this car, but then they end up slowing down because they're afraid, and then the people behind them almost fucking smash into them. And it's how we get into these like massive traffic jams and shit. It's like engineers probably just rage all the time. It's like, no, we didn't build the road wrong. There's just too many of you that suck shit at driving and don't know how to merge and exit. You know, like
yeah,
100%.
I remember doing like a hiking meetup thing where the person driving couldn't handle going a consistent speed. They could only accelerate or decelerate. So the entire drive out to Lake Louise, we were
that drives me nuts.
in constant like changing of speed the entire time, and we were all petrified. I actually had to drive her car home because the entire group was like, "You're not getting behind the wheel of this car," and she was 100% sober.
Yeah.
But no way that person is more safe on the road than a good driver after having a few beers.
Right.
Yeah.
I remember, you know, like I was volunteering with a senior like a few years ago. She was like, I don't know, 82 or something. She hadn't driven in like 2 years. She was talking about how excited she was to go back on the road. And I was just imploring her not to.
Yeah.
I was like, please don't do this. It's like, I get that you're upset your granddaughter is using your car and whatever, but like, you don't need to use a car. And like, there's literally services for you to just call like whatever that bus system is, you know, like you can get anywhere you want. And anyway, she was just like adamant. She's like, no, I want to drive to Walmart, which is like, like only like 7 blocks away from her house. And I was just like, oh my God, this is like, again, like after you're 60, I feel like you have to go in for testing way more often than we're requiring right now.
Yeah, totally. And I don't get what they're testing, because my grandfather, he kept passing those tests into his 90s, and it was like, no, he can't be. He actually got into an accident eventually. That's when he finally gave up his license, and now I have his car. That's where I got that car from, because eventually he was just like, and I kept saying it. I kept saying, we need to take his license away. He's going to get into an accident. The lucky thing is that nobody got hurt. That was the lucky thing.
Totally.
The accident was inevitable, right?
Well, yeah, my grandpa drove till he was 99. It's like, should that ever be possible? No. I don't think your cognitive abilities are fucking there, you know? Like, and like my other grandpa, I remember specifically like me and my brother going on a horseback riding trip with him, and like he would just turn his head, look out the window, and he'd be like, look at those horses, for epic amounts of time when you're driving 70 kilometers an hour. And like I said to my brother, like, one of these turns, Grandpa is he's not gonna make one of these turns. Like, do you have your seatbelt on? Sure enough, 3 turns later, just boop, off the road, like $4,000 or $5,000 in repairs to his car. And it's just like, yeah, why is my family not stepping in? Like, you should, if your whole family comes together and like signs something and says, take away this guy's license, they absolutely should. And I get that guys like absolutely deteriorate. Like, there's a lot of studies about once you lose that independence, you just deteriorate like crazy. But like, holy fuck, like, yeah, old people are.
Yeah, like I really hope that when I get old, I have some level of self-awareness so that I'm not such a pain in the ass when these sort of things have to happen, right? Like, the one thing that I find is like, let's say you are successful throughout your life and you have a big ass house, and then, you know, your kids move away, your wife passes away, suddenly you're an old man living in a 6-bedroom house, right? There's a lot of these situations where the person doesn't want to leave. You're like, go get a 1-bedroom apartment, go into this assisted living facility, and they're like, no, this is my house. I've lived here for 30 years. I don't want to leave.
Mm.
And it's like, well, you can't take care of a 6-bedroom house. Even I would have struggled with that by myself. I'd be like, I'm not fucking cleaning all of these bathrooms. Like, come on. Right. So,
well, yeah, I mean, but everyone feels that right to like stay where they are. And like I think just nobody likes change at a certain point.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm alone in that. Like, I just think it's like, you also just don't want to admit you need help, right? Like, I think that's also another human thing. It's like, you just, if you start to deteriorate, like you can't shovel anymore, you can't whatever. It's like, your first thought isn't like, oh, I need to ask for help. It's like, I don't want to tell anyone because I'm embarrassed, you know?
Yeah, it's like a reminder of your ever declining capacity, right?
Yeah.
It's like,
I also think it's like the weed thing in the sense that like, if you like, I would like to think that at a certain point I'll be like, okay, I can't drive anymore. Like, fuck that. Like I'm terrible at this. Right.
mm-hmm.
But no, it's going to be like the weed thing. It's like, but I'll do it, next time I won't do it. Right.
Yeah.
Like, it's like next time I'll make sure to not. Yeah. I don't know.
Well, we'll have, luckily for us, self-driving car technology will be fully available for us by the time we lose our capacity to drive. I
don't think so.
You don't think so?
Not with current technology. Because, like, here's the thing they haven't sorted out, right? So, like, it's all cameras, right? Judging shit right now.
Yeah.
What do you do? Like, they've already shown that, like, any kind of precipitation or, like, fucking snow, like, what do you do about us having ice on our like,
Yeah, well, that's true. I mean, when you think about a human driver, really they only have they have their eyes, right? They're judging the world as limited as a computer can. A computer could have like 6 eyes or 7 eyes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So eventually the computer is going to be much better.
Right, but do you think a computer is going to be able to... I just think there's some like elements that it's just not going to be able to sort out. Like, for example, like the other day I was driving like towards a car on one of these like narrow streets, and there's cars on both sides, and like I'm going, and all of a sudden I realize like, oh shit, there's kind of a huge snowbank like that's going to like push me into this car, right? So like, how are you going to get it to judge like these little inclines in snow that might affect the outcome? Like,
yeah, I think the way it was described, I think it was Elon Musk actually who mentioned it, and he said that for a computer, time is different. Like, if you look at how a computer processes information, it would be like a person who's living in slow motion, right? Because they're processing so much faster than a human brain is. So when a car is driving along, even though it's going, say, 70 kilometers an hour, it's the equivalent of a human driving at like 15 kilometers an hour, because that's how much faster the computer is able to process. So if you think about how much easier it would be for you to avoid collisions and that sort of thing if everybody was going 15 kilometers an hour, then it starts to make self-driving more plausible, in my opinion.
Oh no, like I'm totally with you. A computer's gonna be able to make way faster decisions. Like I don't think that's the issue. I think it's always come back to that same issue with self-driving, is like, in the event that something's gonna happen, nothing can be controlled. Do you hit the oncoming car, or do you hit the side car? Do you hit the old lady? Like, that.
Yeah, the trolley problem, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that's... People make a big deal about this trolley problem in self-driving cars, where they're like, oh, software developers are going to have to program in, you have to hit the dog and not the grandma, right? Mm-hmm. And it's like, I honestly don't believe that's going to happen. I think in most cases, all kind of work towards a self-driving artificial intelligence will be just figuring out how to avoid hitting anything. avoiding collisions as much as possible. There won't ever be a situation where you have the capacity to choose between hitting one thing or hitting another, but you don't then also have the capacity to choose to hit nothing.
Right, but I also think like you're not going to ever get compliance from 100% of the population that we're all going to have self-driving cars, right? So there's always going to be that random element of people like myself that don't want to relinquish.
Yeah.
Like, I will never get in a self-driving car. Like I just won't do it. They could tell me it has 100% safety and I'm more dangerous. It's like, I don't care. I want to be the reason I die. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
like it doesn't make logical sense. I get that, but it's like the idea that I could die in a thing that's out of my control. Just I can't wrap my brain around that.
So you will literally be the old man who won't give up his license.
Yes.
Everyone else is driving these automated cars.
100%. Thankfully, I don't think the world's ever going to get to that point. Like I don't really believe we're going to exist that much longer because.
Fair enough.
I mean,
there's problems.
There's a lot of problems
on the horizon.
Well, yeah. Like maybe everything maybe a virus again, like, we got lucky with COVID, right? Like it's this for being a test for a global pandemic. This is pretty benign. Like if it was something like fucking Ebola or like something crazy that was like killing mass amounts of people, like I think that'll be more likely to help the world's.
Yeah, it definitely could. Like I was thinking, could there be a virus that is as infectious as COVID and takes as long, like the incubation period is like say 2 weeks, but it's as deadly as like AIDS or something, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, or even has a longer incubation, because like AIDS, for example, you don't show symptoms for years, right?
Oh, really? I don't know much about it.
Yeah, with HIV, there's an initial flu like symptoms that most people will mistake for the flu. And then after that, you're perfectly healthy, but fully infectious for years and years and years before.
And that's when it technically develops into AIDS, right?
Yeah,
like,
that's right.
Okay.
So it's like if we had a virus like that, but it was as infectious as COVID, airborne, things like that. I mean, we probably wouldn't even know that it existed until like a large portion of the population was infected, right?
Yeah. Well, but I mean, that's the thing. Like we're still burning down the rainforest at like unprecedented rates, right? And so like, I think nature at some point is just, it's going to be like humans are the problem. Something like, I don't know how it works. I'm not a fucking bio whatever, but it's like, it feels like at some point it'll just be like, all right, in order to survive, here's what happens. Or is it random? I honestly don't know.
I'm not as optimistic about the planet's ability to deal with the human problem, as it were.
Why are we going to Mars?
Well, that's a good idea, right?
No, it's not. Why are we spending all that money trying to fix shit here? Like I don't understand this whole like escape. Like I don't understand why people are so obsessed with this Mars shit. I genuinely don't. Because it's like, we don't even know what the fucking ocean is. Let's get a sub to the bottom of the ocean. Let's figure out if there's something at the bottom of the ocean that'll cure rheumatoid arthritis. Like, you know what I mean?
Fair enough.
Like, the solutions to me are like, I don't know. I feel like we have priorities very fucked up in general.
I 100% agree that our priorities are fucked up. I don't think Mars is one of those circumstances, though.
So what's it going to do for us to learn about Mars?
Well, for one, we want to have a backup plan. Like, even if we're taking care of the Earth 100% as good as one could possibly do, there's, asteroids or something that could cause a sort of an existential risk to us, right?
But backup plan for who? You think they're going to let us poor motherfuckers on a ship to join them on their other planet?
Well, I mean, maybe not, right?
No,
but
no.
Well, the human race, I guess, right?
Right, but okay, so the human race that is going to go to Mars is going to be that 1% of the 1%, right? And what do you see on Earth? Amass as much land as you possibly can. They're just going to colonize Earth and be like, all right, we own Earth. Let's set up the same systems we have here. And just, yeah, you can come live on Mars, but you're going to be our slaves. We won't tell you you're our slaves, but you're going to basically just work our farms and shit.
Yeah, totally. I understand there is a problem with like the human hierarchies in that sense. Like we're too much of that, oh, I got to be better than this person, or I got to be superior to this person. I have to acquire more resources than everybody else. Those are all problems that I don't know if they're ever going to leave us. Mm-hmm. But at the same token, I want to see the human race survive, even if I'm not one of the people. My
question to you is why?
Why?
Yeah.
Because maybe we're the only intelligent species in the universe.
Right, but isn't there like billions of isn't it an arrogant view at this point to assume that we are the only living things?
We don't know, right?
Yeah.
We don't have, if we have evidence of there being intelligent life elsewhere, that maybe changes the equation. But right now, we don't have that evidence. So in my view, it's like we're the only chance the universe has at intelligence, right?
But why does it matter? Like maybe this goes back to like my ultimate like I don't feel like life has a lot of value. Like I think of it more as like we're flukily here for a while. You might as well do what you want to. Try to make it a better place if you want to. Burn it down if you want to. It doesn't really ultimately matter.
Yeah, no, I mean I remember this may have been before you joined, but when on the Discord, and I made the point to say that ENFPs are all nihilistic, and everyone was like, "What are you talking about? That doesn't ring true." But it does. Every ENFP I've ever talked to always comes down to it doesn't matter. What's the point? The universe doesn't care about us. Mm-hmm. Nothing we do matters. That's always seems to be the perspective. I'm not sure why that is.
It took me a long time to get here, but it's like, yeah, it definitely just doesn't feel like when like my family, for example, talks about like long-term investing and stuff. Like I just think like, okay, mm-hmm. but like maybe I won't be here in 20. Like I think you have to pay attention to it because in case you do, but it's like. They talk about it with such certainty that they will be here, and like you need to invest because otherwise you're for sure going to be without. But it's like maybe you should have spent that money now to enjoy a better quality life now because you die in 3 years from cancer.
Yeah, totally. I think I can't disagree with that perspective. Like it really doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things, but at the same token, it's the way I look at it is like, just because your actions don't have meaning to the universe doesn't mean that the meaning they have to you is any less valid, right?
Sorry, say that again. The universe what?
Like if the universe doesn't care what you do, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't care what you do, right?
Well, my counterpoint is nothing matters, so it doesn't matter whether I do or do not.
Yeah, but it's a complicated subject, but I think there's still a way to assert that what you do has meaning and it has importance within a society, right?
But I think that's something we just have to believe, otherwise you wouldn't like. It's something we all buy into because if we didn't buy into it, then it's like, yeah, you would treat your neighbor like garbage or, you know, like it's like you would just have a breakdown of giving a shit about anything.
Right.
Like I know I certainly border on nihilistic, but I'm not like you talk to a nihilist, they're the fucking worst people to talk to. Like it's not engaged. Like it's like, okay, well, if nothing matters, fucking kill yourself because no one else wants to talk to you. Like it just. Yeah,
like I see nihilism as like it's an argument escape plan, right? Like you'll be having a conversation with someone
like this one with me.
Yeah,
doing it with Mars.
and the person is just like, you know what? Nothing matters.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah.
It's a way to like kind of just exit whatever you're talking about. And yeah, it's a valid one for sure.
But yeah, I just wish someone could convince me that Mars has a purpose. Like that all this money we're pumping into going to Mars has a purpose. Like, are we going to learn something that fundamentally changes how life is here?
Probably not. I think if I had to guess, I would say that Mars will force us to develop new technologies that will have application on Earth.
Okay.
Right? We're finding new challenges to overcome that will then just make things better all around. That'd be my guess. I don't know for sure. I can't say the specific value there is to Mars other than it's a plan B.
But like I don't know how much money like SpaceX and all these other like private enterprises have cost, but it's like I always go back to that thing of like in the same way that if the US cut their $500 million spending on military and put it into schooling and like mental health shit, it's like what would society look like if like Los Angeles, for example, didn't have like 110,000 homeless people? Like a lot more people actually living lives they found enjoyable. Like would we see the same like shit online, like where people are just like raging at each other? Or like I was doing yoga with Ari today, and like I'm going through the comments and it's like there's people that stop by his page to say like, I hope you die, you racist fuck, and like would those people be doing that if they weren't like if they were living lives that they found fulfilling? I don't think so. Like I feel like those are it's that whole hurt people shit. And so
yeah, I totally agree with that. I think there's other ways to divert funds than to say not go to Mars, for example. Like one example to me would be subsidies on fossil fuels or subsidies on like beef, for example. Yeah. Those are two good ways that we could redirect money towards communities and
or just fucking tax companies. Like
yeah.
actually follow through and not have politics dictated by it.
Yeah, like I'm definitely a big fan of wealth taxes, and if you're above a certain amount, and it could be something relatively high, like say $10 million, then you're taxed really heavily. I don't think there's a ambitious person on the planet that's gonna come from say our position of being lower middle class or whatever and say, oh, I would have done something amazing, but $10 million just is not worth it for me.
For sure.
So I'm just going to sit on my couch for the rest of my life, right?
Well, and I also think like there's the people that make $10 million, they're not, no matter how much they want to protest this tax, they're not going to stop doing whatever they did to make that 10 million, right? It's such a bullshit argument to be like, well, now that I'm getting taxed 50% of my income every year, I'm just going to sit on my ass and day drink. It's like,
yeah, exactly.
Bullshit. Like you have a different mind. Like you have to wake up every day and try to accumulate more money or whatever the fuck has driven you to, not everybody's after money, but you know what I mean? Like whatever drove you to make something that made money, totally. It's going to continue to drive you. You will go insane if you just try to sit around.
And even if that argument was true, if you said, oh, this, Steve Jobs would have just given up on Apple before he went anywhere because he couldn't make $1 billion, I would say that's fine. There's hundreds of thousands of other potential Steve Jobs out there that just didn't have the means, the resources, and the time of place to do what he did, right?
Well, what's that law? Like there's some law about like, like if Edison hadn't invented whatever, someone else would have, right? Like I feel like that's kind of like technology too. Like people are always like, oh, what if this guy didn't exist? It's like, well, probably around the same time and whatever, someone else would have had the same idea and come up with something very similar, if not exactly the same. Right?
Yeah, like I saw a tweet the other day that put it really well, and it was talking about how Einstein's the neurons in Einstein's brains were more densely packed, right? And this guy was like, you know what? I'm less interested in the structure of Einstein's brain as I am with the fact that there's of how many people with the same brain live their entire lives tilling a field or something like that, right?
Yeah.
Like that to him was a more important question. I was like, yeah, that's a good point, right?
Well, and I mean, I think it was Einstein that I learned about this week that like gave one of his kids away, basically. Okay. So that like, so it's just like, yeah, you can be the most brilliant dude ever and invent tons of shit, but you might still be a shit dad. Like there's, you know, it's like you might just not have the capacity to, you know.
I hadn't heard that. He gave a kid away.
Well, like, I'm sure there's
like,
more to it.
Go.
I'm sure there's more to it, but yeah, something to do with like, yeah, he didn't have the time or care to be taking care of a kid, and so he basically like let someone else raise his kid, essentially.
Yeah. Well, how do you feel about this idea that we should judge great people based on things like that, right?
I don't care. Like that. This is the thing. Like I just ultimately don't care. I don't like. It's like how if an actor I really like, if he's shitty to people in real life, I don't care. Like I like Twitter and all these other things. It's like I hate them because I don't want to get to know people in position. Like, what is your craft? If you're a great musician, I will pay attention to that. I don't care what you do outside of it. It doesn't matter to me.
Yeah, see, I want to be the same way as you in that sense, but like a good example for me would be Kevin Spacey. Like I was a huge fan of Kevin Spacey's work, like Usual Suspects, House of Cards, that sort of thing. But when all that stuff came out about him, it's just I just can't watch.
Well, no, but there's different levels, right? Like there's different levels. Actual prosecuted crimes. I'm just talking about like when it's like you know, a girl comes out and says like the Wu-Tang Clan didn't treat me very well when I went to their bang bus after a party.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, what did you expect from the Wu-Tang Clan? Like we're gonna like, yeah. Anyways, it's just like.
Oh yeah, totally. Like I don't care
if it's a crime. I absolutely care. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But if it's just like they were very mean and blah blah blah. It's like that's not. I don't care. I don't want to be hearing about this. Like it's going to affect something maybe, but I don't know.
Yeah, like I agree with that. I don't care if a celebrity is an asshole. As long as I'm not personally friends with that celebrity, I don't give a shit.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think, like there's some celebrity that I know I love, but like he's such a dick to people. And it's like it doesn't matter to me. He's good in movies. I don't have to interact with him. Like other people are choosing to. Do you know what I mean? So like you can say like you have to go to a set and be with this guy, but it's like no, you don't. You ultimately have choice. I hate that people don't feel like they have choice. Like it like well, I have to because it's my career. It's like no, you can fucking change careers, you know, or say like I don't want to work with this guy, or I don't know. It's just I hate that like passing personal like responsibility shit, like in the sense that like I feel like more people need to understand you ultimately have the choice.
Yeah, that's true. I think also though the one counterpoint to that would be that I really fucking hate when people who are just amazing people use that as like a free pass to be a complete asshole, right? Not so much celebrities because I don't know them, but it's like if I were to say I have to work with someone who is undeniably brilliant, but at the same time they're arrogant and they're a complete asshole, I just really hate that. Like I would not.
Sure, I wouldn't want to do it either. But like I'm talking about like I'm more talking about like even like low levels. Like I'll hear people like that work in minimum wage jobs and they'll be complaining about their boss and whatever. And I'm like, look, you can for sure quit today and go find the same wage at a different place. Like, if it's as bad as you're saying it is, like, stop complaining to me about it. Go move. Like that's what I mean is, like, people just don't have, like, I don't know. There's just something that, like, people seem to like having something to complain about over and over. There's certain types anyways.
Mm-hmm.
And
right.
like, I don't understand that mentality. Like, and maybe it's because I've always been, like, super ready to quit anything. Like, I was telling someone recently that, like, I was working on a sixplex, like, and I had leaned up all these massive joists, like, all day, worked my ass off. My friend and boss, like, came over at the end of the day. I can't even remember what he did. He, like, kicked one. It domino effect knocked them all over. And I was like, I'm going to quit. I'm going to quit. If you ask me to put those all up tomorrow, I'm going to fucking quit. And, like, you know, he's like, I'll get the 2 new guys to do it tomorrow. Because, like, you know, like, I just think, like a lot of people, like, the reason people like that get away with that behavior is because people are unwilling to call them out on it or resign or quit, or, you know, like, if you have someone, like, an actor that's being a super asshole to everyone, fucking have everyone get together and be like, we don't want to work with this dude. Do you know what I mean? Like, take the power. I hate this, like, helplessness shit.
Yeah, no, I would love for the world to work that way. Particularly, like, using the example of a movie set, it's like, the problem is that some actors are just, they're so marketable, and the whole production hinges so much on the draw that they're going to bring in, that you can't do that. You can't just swap them out for some other actor, right? And that, I mean, I hate that fact. I don't want to live in a society that works that way, but it does. It does work that way, right?
Right, but at the same time, my argument is, like, stop propping people like that up. So it's like, if this actor is known to be shitty, blah, 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 stop making projects that need this guy to carry a 100 million. But, like, it's ultimately about money and whatever, right? Like,
yeah, well, it's also about just mindless consumers, right? Like, there was a time till probably fairly recently when having Adam Sandler in your movie was a guaranteed, like, $100 million, right? Like, how do you turn that up, right? You didn't, like, these movies, like, especially near the end there, like, Adam Sandler's movies were so low effort. They were complete garbage. It didn't matter, right? It was just like people would still go see them, right?
And I will fight you on the fact that they were garbage. Name one that you hated.
Well, I didn't watch Jack and Jill, but it's pretty...
Oh, okay, I don't know what that one is.
It's pretty unanimously considered to be, like, just a horrible...
One of the worst.
Movies. I like, you know, some of his earlier stuff, like...
he really divides opinion. I've known some women that absolutely fucking hate him. Like, will not... I was like, go watch Punch Drunk... what's it called?
Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's, like, a great movie, yeah.
He's great at acting.
Yeah.
In that movie. Like, I can't speak to, like his silly projects, right? It's like, he doesn't need to be a good actor. You're not going there you're looking for him to be silly, right? But yeah, like, women specifically just seem to fucking hate him, and it's like, okay, I get it. It's pretty, like, you know, farts and whatever humor.
Yeah, like, I liked, obviously, like, Billy Madison, Happy Gilmore, The Waterboy, Little Nicky. I wasn't super into those.
I didn't like Little Nicky at all.
Yeah, I kind of stopped watching his movies after that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, except for Punch Drunk Love.
Yeah.
That was amazing, but that was, what's his face? I can't remember his name. The director.
Yeah. And like, oh man. I honestly, like, but that's the thing. Like, so I feel like all that money could be better allocated. Do you know what I mean? Like, now we kind of have, like, a super problem with, like, it's gone so, like, there's billion-dollar movies and then there's nothing else. That, like, that's why everything's a fucking superhero movie, right? Like, you don't hear about, Like, I'm trying to think of like something in the 90s that like just would not work now. Like Crimson Tide, for example, right? Like, it's like you're going to go watch a submarine movie. This is going to be like, what happens in that? It's like not a lot. Like, you know, it's just not as, I don't know, engaging or.
I 100% agree. I think the 90s were like the high watermark for movies.
Yeah.
Right, and we haven't really got back there.
For diversification, anyways.
Yeah. Just movies that would try something different.
Yeah.
Right, like you just got all of these really interesting ideas coming out, right? And you just don't get that nowadays.
Do you think streaming is going to change that though? Because like more, like there's just way more availability now.
Yeah, I think what happened was TV took on a lot of that kind of work, right? Like movies kind of shifted into these blockbuster, like superhero high special effects, and like the good storytelling kind of fell
more
on
like HBO and shit like that.
The TV. Yeah. I feel like TV now has kind of lost its way as well, so I don't know really to where to get that anymore.
Yeah,
but
I do think like streaming is gonna give us a lot more. Like I would say I used to watch a lot of foreign shit, but like now I really watch a lot of foreign shit because it's like, to me, it is the more compelling storytelling, which I need in something. Like I can't, there's occasional where I'll just watch something like The Raid. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Right? Like where it's just a super light premise. These two cops are going to go fight everyone in a building, right? Like, that's great every once in a while, but more often than not, I want something that's like, I did not see how the shit was going to go at all, right? Like, you know, like something crazy, like Diving Bell and the Butterfly. Did you ever see that?
I did, yeah.
One of the most depressing things I've ever seen in my life, but it's like, it was so unique that it just like, I was unbelievably compelled by it.
But the point you bring up, and I think that's a good point, is that in the 90s, something like the Diving Bell and the Butterfly would have packed theaters, right? People would be talking about it at work saying, oh, did you see this movie? Whereas now it won't make a splash. Even though it's objectively still an amazing movie that everyone should go see, it's like we've lost that desire to see that on the big screen, right?
Your neighbor that you hate is in trouble, like in a big way. Like, they've done nothing. They've just fucked you over forever. You know, they throw dog shit in your yard. They're actively like aggressive neighbors, play music till like 4 a.m.
Yeah.
Their house is burning down. Do you, Jason, help them?
Is their life in danger?
No, just their house.
So just property damage.
Yeah.
If they're an asshole, no.
And they're like, hey man, give me your hose.
I mean, I guess I would. I wouldn't say no. Like, no, you can't use my hose. Well, I mean, I understand sort of the question. In reality, a hose isn't going to fucking do anything for a burning house.
Absolutely not. But it's about the gesture, right? Like,
yeah.
Because for me, I still feel like if someone has been that egregious to me, I've thought about this a lot, and like, you know, people that know me like well would say I would never react like this. I'd for sure give the guy a hose. I don't think so. I'm pretty fucking vindictive in certain situations. I'd be like, no, eat shit. Remember this whole last year? Go fuck yourself. Try to be a better person and learn from this. Do you know what I mean? Like, it would be
Well, okay, I can see if we're thinking of the hose as purely a symbolic gesture, then don't give him the fucking hose, right? Yeah, get in that win right there, because it's not really going to make a difference. So you might as well let them know that they're a piece of shit that way. But what about if it is something that could actually save their house? Like, let's say they need to call the fire department. You have a phone to do so.
Yeah.
And that's the only way the fire department's coming, is if you make that call or you let them use your phone.
I would have to let them use my phone because I have such a trigger and aversion to wanting to go to jail. And so like I feel like in denying someone a phone, you would get blasted out on all social media as my neighbor didn't give me my phone. And it'd be like, and it, like, again, this goes back to the, like, whoever gets the story out first, it really seems to just guide everyone's opinion, right? Like nobody ever asks like, well, what is the context, right? Like even if you come up with the context later, it's like, no. The headline's going to be asshole neighbor doesn't give phone, right? And it's like, well, no, this guy was throwing shit in my yard all the time and like fucking, you know, playing music.
Yeah, like you want to be able to go on to YouTube, record a video and say, listen, people, you don't understand. That guy was such a dick.
Yeah.
Like if any one of you guys would do the same thing, but somehow that wouldn't turn that way, right?
And so I've actually seen like not this level, but like there was a big news story about my friend and his framing company, and like this woman who is now for sure a Karen, like, you know, like under the new guides, she was like calling Global TV to investigate this shady framing company who made her shit house because a few pieces of siding had come off and whatever, right? And so like my friend ended up trying to go on TV to defend himself, and I was like, this is why you send a statement in, because like it was horrific. Like I was like, you can't ever do this again. Like you looked like the guiltiest fuck in the world.
Really?
Like it just, you look like a shady ass contractor. Like this is why you send in the statement from your lawyer that's bland and blah blah blah, because then you don't make the, like it doesn't make the news. It, like if the news doesn't get your whatever, it's not going to be this huge thing, right? And like, yeah, anyways, it's just like defending yourself. Everyone already has this perception that you're guilty and that you were in the wrong. And so it's quite hard to actually change that, right? Like I listened to Ari's podcast on, he had a bunch of people that got canceled, like Steve Renazizi and Shane Gillis and I forget the woman that got canceled, but I think she was the woman that like said she was going to Africa. I hope I don't get AIDS or something. And then she said, just kidding, I'm white.
Oh yeah, right.
Anyways,
right.
He had like all three of these people on to be like, and they were all talking about how like, and himself, like he regrets trying to defend himself like a week into the Kobe thing, right? Because it's just like, people have already made up their minds. This isn't going to, like, an apology doesn't even do anything. In the court of public opinion, you're still guilty, right?
Yeah, like that's totally something, like what your friend did is something I would try to do, and it would go horribly. But it's just like I can't sort of resist the fight, you know what I mean?
Oh, and I think most people can't, and that's the problem. Is you get drawn, like people get, like I'm not on Twitter, you're on Twitter, but people get drawn into these arguments and shit.
Right.
And does it ever change the person's mind?
I mean, it depends on, I think in a circumstance like a canceled celebrity, there's nothing you can do in that circumstance. Like Louis C.K., for example, he did it the best, where he just said, you know, I didn't realize that what I was doing, I thought what I was doing was consensual. I didn't realize that in my position, sometimes consent doesn't mean what it should mean, right?
Yeah.
And then he just disappeared from the public eye for, I guess he even still to this day, he hasn't really come back. And it's like, I think if he did come back now, there's enough people out there that are just wanting to see his comedy again, that they would say to the people that are calling for him to stay canceled, fuck off, right?
Right.
So
see, Louis is an interesting one to me, because he used to be one of my favorite comedians. Then I heard all the stuff that came out at a time that like I still think like it's gonna be hard for me to watch his shit, even though I know the full storyline picture now.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like that's what I mean by like once you're perceived guilty, it's hard to undo that, right? Like,
yeah. See, me with Louis C.K. is like, if he were to come out with a special now, I would.
Well, you already did.
Did he come?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I think I just never watched it.
Yeah.
But no, I'm not. I don't see what he did as enough to make me not want to be a fan of his.
Right.
I always really liked his comedy and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Like, it's not like Kevin Spacey, right?
No. Like, yeah. It's not like. It's not like who's the person, right? The Army Hammer guy. Do you know about this?
No.
Anyway, everyone, like, so someone basically deleted all their texts and screenshotted it and made this big story about it. He's apparently this actor, and he's really into like cannibalism fetish, like, kind of thing.
Okay.
So it's like, I want to break your bones, I want to drink your blood, I want to cut you, I want to whatever, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, okay, like, one person comes out with this, and it's like, okay, you didn't keep your own shit in, which means that almost certainly you're going along with it and you're making it sound okay. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, two consenting adults having a cannibalism fetish, kind of like sexed or whatever.
Yeah, I get it. It's makes me really uncomfortable, but I understand. As long as there's no actual like consumption of flesh occurring, there's nothing wrong with it, right?
Right, but so then this is what's different to me about the Louis situation and this. It's like, as soon as that came out, more and more women started to come out with their own things of like when boundaries were crossed, or like when he seemed dangerous and maybe we should look into this dude. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And like, yeah, I like, to me, it's once there's more and more people kind of corroborating shit, then it's like, okay, like, maybe this is.
Yeah, well, if it comes out that someone has like, oh, this person did this weird sex thing with someone else, 100% it's the case that is not the first time that they've done that thing, right?
Yeah.
Like, you don't just start with a fetish. Fetishes build slowly over time, right? I think, right? I assume that's the case.
Not always. No.
You think you just go full bore sex cannibalism like right out the gate?
No, but like, say I, like, for example, like, I would never be into cannibalism, whatever. But like, say I had never heard of it, right? And a girl was really into it. Yeah. And like, she got me really into it. Suddenly that's a kink of mine. Do you know what I mean? So it can just be like, bam, and then it's on. Because
just like a light bulb.
Yeah, like, you just realize like, oh shit, this is something I'm into. I had no idea I was into this, and now it's like, I am really into this. Like, that switch happens all the time.
Yeah, but I think that's actually a really good point, and I hadn't thought of it like that you could sort of get a kink from someone else who's into it, and then you just realize, wow, this is really cool. But I feel like even then you are already like a mature sexual person. Like, you don't start that way. You already developed throughout your life. Like, you grew into a person that gets into relationships and has these sort of things. And maybe at that particular point in time, you're just kind of bored with sex. Mm-hmm. And this person comes into your life, introduces this kink, and you're like, holy shit, right? This is what I needed. Maybe it wasn't really, like, maybe any kink at that particular point in time would have had that same effect, right?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of people that, like, yeah, they get into kink early, for example, because, you know, I mean, the one that is like, it fucking creeps me out constantly is like, yeah, like 40-year-old dudes with like 18-year-old women. It's like, okay,
right.
Like, convincing them of shit that they, you know, it's like, oh, I think you're like this, I think you will like this, and whatever. But it's like, later that person will be like, I was only really into it because I was really into this person, right? Like, they later learn they're totally vanilla. They don't actually like being whipped and shit like that, right? And they actually regret their past life. Like,
I think there's a lot of that. I think there's a lot of, if say you have a fetish or a kink, I don't know what the proper term is, but let's say you develop that as the result of a relationship you were in, a certain percentage of people might carry it on simply because they miss that person, right?
Yeah. I think kink is kind of different though. Like some people might ascribe like, you know, I got this kink from this person, I'd want to continue it. But I think it's more just like when you go to discuss anything with someone, getting a different perspective can show you something that you'd never thought about before and change how you think now.
Yeah, yeah.
Right? Like I was going to share with you today, like one of the best hacks that like life hack things that I've learned recently is like this dude was just like, if it's going to take less than 60 seconds, do it. Just do it. Anything. And I've started to employ that, and I just like, yeah, just fucking do shit that takes 60 seconds or less. Like today, I was like, there was a door that just wasn't opening, and I was like, I should just go and tighten the screws. Did it? Done. Right?
Yeah.
And so like, it's just about getting a new idea. So like someone could be like, I can't even think of a kink off the top of my head that like someone would like spark, because it's just like either you're into it or you're not generally, or you would know by now by like generally. But like to say like someone is like, they have the most unbelievable feet you've ever seen in your life.
Yeah.
You had never seen feet, but for whatever reason, your primal brain was just like, holy shit, I'm into this now. Right?
Right.
Like, okay, I lost where I'm going with this.
Well, let me see if I can pick it up. So to me, I think we probably, surprisingly, this is probably a subject where we disagree a lot on, because I always see fetishes and kinks and things like that as this progressive thing where you're constantly trying to push the boundary. Like for a lot of people, there's a thrill element, right? Like it's you have to keep upping what you're doing in order to regain that sort of rush that you get,
yeah,
right?
We absolutely disagree on this. But okay, I do remember the thought now. So I've seen that girl's feet now, and it triggered like, I'm into feet now.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily me and this girl, maybe we break up. I'm not suddenly going to shut down that part of my brain that's like turned on by feet now. Like
right.
that's a thing that's going to continue. I'm not going to be thinking, oh, I want to keep being into feet because, you know, Rachel's feet were amazing. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, but you might never, let's say you dated this girl in high school, and just seeing a girl naked was like such a new novel experience for you that you didn't even notice the feet at all. The feet were still just as beautiful, perhaps even more beautiful, but because you weren't at that right point in your life, you didn't develop that fetish, right?
So you're saying it's like a time and place thing.
I'm saying that there's a progression to these things, right?
But how is that a progress? Like you're saying, so you somehow subconsciously noticed the feet back in the day, and like now, like 15 years later, it's like re-triggering that when you see this girl's new feet?
No, I think what I'm saying
I don't understand the progression part.
What I'm saying is like you have a certain amount of sexual appetite, and then over time, vanilla sex just starts to be less interesting. And so that at that point, your brain is just looking for that new thing that it can latch onto. And in this particular situation, it latches onto the feet. Like you notice, right. But it could be like that one particularly hilarious fetish that I sometimes read about because I find it so hilarious is acrotomophilia, which is you're attracted to amputees, right?
Oh yeah, okay. Yeah.
So I mean, to me, there like I cannot see that fetish any other way than this person simply was in that right state of mind when, let's say, they were having sex with someone who had a fake leg, or they had just got out of a relationship with someone who was an amputee, and they're just trying to grab that magic they had with that person or something like that, right?
Yeah, but this idea of progression doesn't make sense to me. So, like, why do vanilla couples stay vanilla then?
Well, some people don't have that adventurous attitude, right?
I know, but aren't you arguing that kink is progressive, that you need more and more? Like people have been, like, there's like, you know, people that are like 80 that are still fucking the same way they have since their 20s. Like, why didn't they progress into needing more and more?
Well, like, why do some people smoke weed and think, oh, this is cool, and then they go on with the rest of their lives? And some people smoke weed and say, I want to smoke as much weed as I possibly can, until it becomes a problem, right?
Because they're prone to addiction.
Yeah, well,
this isn't, to me, this isn't the same argument. Like addiction is like born out of trauma and what, I mean, actually maybe it is the same argument. Kink people,
right,
hugely mentally ill. I rarely run into people that don't have some kind of like diagnosed mental illness. Like it's pretty fucking attached to trauma and whatever. But I don't understand because I'm for sure a kinky person, but it's not like if I spank a girl, I'm going to be like, all right, the next step is to start getting wooden paddles, and the next step is to make her bleed, and the next step is to, like, it's not, there's no ever increasing. It's like, what gets you going, and like, maybe it will, you know, it's kind of like your favorite chips. It's like sometimes you're into it, sometimes you're not. Maybe it'll fade out for a while, maybe it'll fade out forever, but like you want, it's more about variety than anything.
Yeah, well, variety to me can be progressive in that way. Like for you, or for, say, a more run-of-the-mill kink, I guess, not these like crazy, you just keep trying to get more and more intense with it. You're still trying to recapture the novelty that kink gave you at one point. Now, instead of ever upping the ante within that kink, you're just finding new things to add to it, right?
But yeah, I don't even know how to articulate this, because it's like it's more about the overall play, the idea that like as Dan Savage says, like, all the time, like, cops and robbers with your pants off. It's like, it's like the only arena that adults are really allowed to play, unless you're like, you know, there's other arenas, like you can go get fucked up at a bar. That's also playing, right? Like, it's, you know, but like, we always need that excuse as to, or generally speaking, we need that excuse as to why we let loose. And, you know, like, oh, I was so high, or, oh, I was so drunk yesterday, like I don't even know what I was doing, to allow that freedom. But like, that's all kink is like, you get two kinky people together, and it's like, it's not so much about what you're going to do, it's about the attitude that goes with it, which is like, let's explore shit, let's really like try different things and find different things. It's not about like an increasing novelty.
So I think maybe the difference is that there's definitely a space in that world for, like, say, role play and that sort of thing, and that is maybe different than, say, an acrotomophile who's into amputees, right? Like, that's completely different than people who just want to dress up as something and sort of have some fun, right? Yeah, I totally get that. I totally get you just want to play around to make it more interesting. That's something different than someone who's like, who has like a feeding fetish or something, right? Where they get off on like force feeding women or something, right? Yeah. Like that's a whole kind of different space, look, right?
I kind of understand the feeder gainer thing. Right. It's a whole lane. I have so many like moral issues with it, right? Because it's like, essentially you're just like, but I'm kind of that guy that encourages people to get fucked up and like eat and get obese, and I am that person that's like, indulge, do it. Like, there's no point not to. Right. Like, and so, oh shit.
No, but what I'm saying is like maybe the reason why we're disagreeing is because we're actually talking about two different things, right? Like, I'm talking like the person that wants to feed women and is getting off on that. I think what it is like there's a taboo element to it, right? Like, the thrill is coming from engaging in something that people would find disgusting or
Fucked up,
ridiculous or something.
Yeah.
You get off on that, and
Yeah.
and over time, as you do it more, it becomes normalized to you. You need to find more things that are more ridiculous, more weird.
I don't think so, though.
Yeah.
I think just the mere fact that like it is a taboo thing keeps it interesting. Do you know what I mean? As long as like feeder gainer is not societally acceptable, it's going to remain a kink, right? Like, you know, like if all of it, like, oh my God, okay. The creepiest one to me, and I have no problem sharing this, is littles. Okay, do you know what littles are?
No.
Littles are these.
Sounds hilarious.
It's not hilarious. It's fucking gross, and I don't mean to kink shame, but it's like these people don't have interactions with kids. So basically, it's like guys and girls pretend to be an age.
Oh yeah, okay.
Like 7-year-olds and shit, and talking baby voices and color and whatever. I want to die when I interact with people like that. Like there's any, like, it kind of made sense to me before I started having nieces and nephews. And it's like, no, just no. Like, this is trauma you should be talking about in therapy. Like, this isn't again, it comes back to, like, it is, I guess, a kink because it's taboo, but like, say society just suddenly accepts these adult baby, what's the terminology? Adult baby, little girl dynamics. Say, like, would that fetish still be a thing? I don't think so.
I agree.
And oh, Jesus Christ. Anyways, I
mean,
I'm not very judgmental of many kinks, but fuck that one.
I think ultimately I have to defer to what you say because I'm actually very vanilla myself. I don't really understand this world. I'm trying to apply sort of psychology that has made me maybe do things in other spheres of life to that world to try to make sense of it, but I could be completely wrong.
Right? I honestly don't know if you're wrong or not. Like, I'm for sure going to go away from this thinking like, is it a progression? Is it a thing that like you need more and more? Because like for me, it's like you know, like anytime like the reason I've broken up with most people is they are vanilla, right? Like it's like it really ends up being a dynamic thing that just doesn't work for me because I can't stay grounded. Like on my, like there's this like test that everybody takes on FetLife that's like, you know, what you're into and whatever. It's like I always come out as 0% vanilla, and it's because when I have vanilla sex, it's like this is fine for like when you're getting to know someone, whatever, building that trust. But ultimately, my brain just cannot stay focused on the activity. Like it's like this isn't interesting enough. Like sex is fun, but
right,
like yeah, it's not engaging enough to be like a long-term satisfying thing. Like there's a part of me that then starts to be like, should I be with someone else that's more, you know? And like now that I've actually like had kinky partners, it's like, oh fuck, okay, this is why I was looking for someone else, because it's this whole attitude shift. It's like you know, again, Dan Savage has this like good giving game thing. It's like I've never found that with a vanilla partner. I've had vanilla partners that absolutely wanted to try to extend their own boundaries to like satisfy me, but it's just like, it's just not, you appreciate it, but it's like, it's not the same attitude. You know, they're not like fully wanting like this like desperate want to please. Like in the, like, I'm not much of a please people. Like a lot of kink is like opposite of what you are in real life. So it's like, at least in my experience, I have limited knowledge as well. It's like I'm new to this scene as well. But it's like, if you're a person, I found that like, you know, CEOs, for example, right? They're always the guys that like having their balls getting stomped on and shit because they're, you know, in control all the time. They want to be out of control. For me, it's like, I don't feel like I have a lot of control. So it's like, there's no fucking way I'm ever going to let someone dominate me in a sexual situation. It's just, it's not going to happen. It doesn't. engage me. And so like, something to do with like the niceness, like I'm generally people can disagree. I'm quite a nice person in general, and but I'm not a people pleaser. Like I'm actually not a people pleaser. I'm willing to cut you out. I don't like, if you come ask me for something I don't want to do, I'm not going to do it. Right. Mm-hmm. Whereas then in kink, it's like, I will do anything you want. Like, what do you want to do? It's like, I'm not really into pissing on people, but if you want me to piss on you, I'll piss on you. Do you know what I mean?
So like, you're saying your kink is to be incredibly accommodating to the partner? Yeah.
And that's kink in general. That's the kinky mindset, is people come to it being like, I want to provide as much as I can possibly let my limits do. Right.
Yeah.
Like, like, would I actually be able to go through with that? I don't know. 'Cause it's not my thing. And like, the idea of pissing on someone is like, really? Like, I would really have to be convinced. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, who was the guy? There was like a billionaire that was like, 3 women like came out recently. They were like maids or whatever, saying like they shit on his chest.
Yeah. Well, there was the guy who started McAfee.
That's the guy.
Yeah. John McAfee.
Yeah. So like that kind of thing, right? It's like, I'm not going to be able to do that. But like, the mindset is like, I'm going to do everything in my power to try to accommodate kinks within my sphere, like, my bouquet of kink kind of thing. You hope it crosses up with someone else's.
Yeah. So, and this is something I've actually wondered about, that lifestyle, is like, what happens when the kinks are incompatible? Like, does that happen? How do you handle that? Like, you just go your separate ways, or?
Yeah. I mean, like, yeah, it'd be like dating someone that's vanilla.
Yeah.
Because it's just not it's a compatibility thing. Like, everything's about, how well do you mesh? It's like and the other thing is like, someone could be into all the same kinks as you, but your dynamic just doesn't work for whatever reason. It's like, like, for example, like if a girl really wanted me to be a daddy, it's like, I don't look like a daddy. Like, daddies are typically like kind of overweight, kind of, big, like, dudes. Like, that's not me. I look like I don't know. If anything, I look like a fucking twink or like a jock guy. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's not.
Yeah, you need like a handlebar mustache.
Yeah, like, I can't grow facial hair. Right. Like, it's not like, I don't look the part at all. So it's just like, that would be a thing that's like, maybe I could be into that dynamic. It doesn't, really. But the point is, like, there's certain things you can't do for your partner. I can't look different. Right. And so like, that wouldn't be a compatibility if that person was like, this is my shit. Like, I cannot get off unless I'm, with someone that's a daddy or whatever. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, it's the same as being with someone vanilla. It's just like, your compatibility isn't similar.
Yeah. I was thinking more like someone's into bondage or something, and their partner's also into it. And it's like, well, one of us has to tie the other person up or something like that, right?
Okay, so that happens a lot. Like when, so the thing that's common is there's a lot more submissive people than dominant people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So like, 2 submissive people that have the same kinks have to basically try to
dominate the other person.
Yes. And they argue about who's done it most recently, and like that dynamic, like this is why like generally dominant people like myself are sought after, because it's like, I mean, there's quite a few dominant dudes. Like, I don't think there's any shortage of dudes, but like,
oh yeah.
But like, I think it's way harder if you're a submissive guy looking for a dominant woman. Like, you generally almost always have to pay, like, because women just are not interested in dominating most often.
So you think, is that just a biological thing or social? Don't know.
I literally have no idea. I would be only beginning to guess. Like, it's just I don't know. It's just like I don't know. I honestly don't know. I think about that a lot, actually, is like, why are so many, like, you've heard the term pillow queen before?
I have not.
Okay. Anyways, there's this like stereotype about like really hot girls, for example, that they're just pillow queens, in the sense that like they're going to be terrible in bed. They're just going to lay there because they're super hot, and they've never had to, like, no one's ever been like, can you do something? Because it's just like, you're just stupidly hot, right? And I forget where I'm going with this thought. What were we talking about? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I do think there's something about women liking to be submissive, like, and like in the same way that like courting, right? Like generally, even super hardcore feminists will admit they like to have a guy approach them. Like, they don't want to do the approaching. It's just so is that nature, nurture? I have no idea, you know?
Yeah, I don't know either. It is interesting though. I think that's, it's like these sort of, this kink world kind of illuminates aspects of of human nature that we would otherwise not show, right? Like we all kind of want to pretend that we like freedom, like to say, oh, I want to be a slave, for example, would be ridiculous to say in a normal situation, right? But it's like, there's all these women out there and some guys who that's their thing, right? And it's like, why is that? Like, why do we put on this front in normal situations, but then we have this sort of backroom thing that really shows who we truly are?
The slave dynamic's an interesting dynamic. Because like, I'm a person that was like, back in the day, I was like, I want to relinquish all my control. Like, I want to stop having to think for myself. I understand that dynamic and appeal. Like, because there's a lot of scenarios where women have guys doing their chores for them, or like going and doing their laundry and whatever. I personally would have a really hard time with having a slave or anything like that. Like, I'd be like, are you sure? Like, you're sure you like this? Like, this doesn't, you know, you're not going to tell me in like 5 years that like you were in a bad mental space and I was taking advantage of, you know what I mean? But like, I understand the dynamic of wanting to give up total control, because it is like for like a master, right? Like, it's a lot of work, honestly, to have a slave. Like, this is what people don't understand about that dynamic, generally speaking, is like, so yeah, you have the guy doing your laundry, blah blah blah, but you're also having to be incredibly creative and set up all these dynamics and things for them to do, and you know, how to treat them. Otherwise, they're not going to stay around. They're not going to be interested in what you're offering, right?
Yeah, like I heard a interview about a guy who was in a bondage BDSM type situation where he was dominant, and he described it as like he's putting on a show. Yeah. Right? Like, it's basically theater for the other person, where you're pretending to basically control everything about them, right?
Yeah. Well, and that's what kink is, right? Like, it's like, I don't feel like like, I know other people would say I come across as confident. It's not at all true. Like, I'm very insecure. It's not a true confidence. But when it comes to like kink shit, I actually am confident in that area, right? And so, because it is like, I can put on this persona that's not me, that's just like, this dude doesn't give a fuck about you. And, you know, like, some women are really like whatever the dynamic is, right? You've established that dynamic, but it allows a freedom that I wouldn't normally otherwise have, right? Like, because I'm such a conscientious person, I'm generally worried, how is this person feeling? How is this person, you know, thinking, blah, blah, blah. Right. So yeah, kink stuff. And I mean, this is definitely our Get Canceled podcast for sure. Like now that we've talked about how much I hate littles as much. I should say, I have a reason to, in a sense. Like I had a girl spring her little voice on me during sex, and it really was like, I don't want to use the term traumatizing because it's not traumatizing, but it was like a, what the fuck was that? Like just like, please don't ever do that again. Like it's like,
well, so my perspective, and this isn't going to help the Not Get Canceled podcast, but
perfect.
To me, it's the same thing. Like we were talking about with drunk driving, is like we have to be more objective about it, right? Like if two fully grown adults wanted, in the privacy of their own bedroom, act like children for the purpose of getting off, it may be abhorrent to you, but there's nothing objectively wrong. There's no victim. There's nothing going wrong there. There's no reason to look down on it, right?
Oh, totally. And like it goes back to like the like, why are conservatives so concerned with gay sex? It's like, are they asking you to be in their like house? Like, fuck off. Why does it matter to you? Right. And it's the same with the adult baby. Like, I don't want to give the impression that I'm like, this is why I'm saying like, I'm absolutely not trying to kink shame. I'm just saying for me, like there's an ick factor for sure where it's just like, ugh, because like there's definitely groups of people that are saying it's normalizing pedophilia and stuff like that.
Yeah. That's
not the camp that I come from. I'm just saying it creeps me out. I don't like seeing people in diapers in my like kink feed, you know, like it's just a personal preference, you know?
Yeah. And that's fair. Everyone can have preferences. It's like,
yeah. Oh, there's people that look at redheads and they're like, ugh, gross.
Right.
I don't get offended. I'm just not their type, right? Like,
right. Totally.
Yeah. It really is that like sharing your, or like just, yeah, don't give a shit about what people are doing in the privacy of their own home.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimately.